Well, hello, 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 and welcome to Soul Tech with Cynthia. I'm so excited to have you guys joining us today for another special episode of our podcast. I have an incredible guest today, which I think you are going to find fascinating. His work touches on so many wonderful and interesting areas of spirituality and the hero's journey. Welcome, Masati. It's so lovely to finally get a chance to get you on the show. I've been trying to get him; he's just been very busy.
Thank you so much. Thanks
Welcome.
for having me, Cynthia.
Yeah, yeah. Can you share a little bit with the audience before you and I, because you guys know I always just jump into conversations about all the most
Yeah.
fascinating things going on, trying to help you guys out. But I'd love for you to take a moment just to share some about your work with our listeners.
Sure. Well, basically, when I was younger, very young, I wanted to find the solutions of life, especially like in today's world, where we can't really like trust a lot of things out there. Who do you go to? So I always wanted to go inward. So and I wanted to know the answer so bad, Cynthia, that I had my first near-death experience, which
Hmm.
basically the universe said, "Do you really want to know the answers?" It's like, yeah, I really do want to know the answers. And that first near-death experience allowed me to see and understand who we are at a very, very deep level, and what our purpose is, why we're here, offer solutions. So what I do now after, gosh, 14 years, maybe over 100,000 client sessions, basically I help people solve the problems that, money, fame, fortune, now AI, can't solve, the real problems.
Yeah, yeah, I love that. So much of our world that has been built that we're now tearing down. Is built on the external, all of our pursuits and energy being towards the external, whether it's the way we dress and what our style is, what labels we give ourselves, to
Exactly.
whether or not we're getting engagement and applause from perfectly strange people that you don't know, and it's so backward.
Yes.
Uh, yeah, yeah, very interesting. Near-death experiences is such a fascinating. I've had so many that at some points I was like, "Are you trying to tell me something?" So, could you share a little bit about your NDEs and how they kind of led to the work that you do?
Yes. So the first near death literally showed me the possibilities of who we are. Imagine that you're a young child, and before society told you who you are and what to be, you had that limitless potential, the possibilities, right? As a young kid, right? So when and that's what I wanted. It's like, gosh, I feel so limitless here. And then as I grew, it just I felt so limited, going to college, going to work, doing all the things that, you get ready for, adulthood. And I'm going, there's got to be a better way. So that first near death, I had my jaws crushed in a rail car accident. It was a warehouse accident. It was a college job. And at that point, I was literally hanging by, my jaws, and I had separated completely out of my body, and I was looking at my body, and I'm going, wow, how can that happen? How can I be here if I'm over there?
Hmm.
I didn't give it a second thought. I'm going, oh, you poor thing. Oh, I didn't get to live or anything like that, because the version of me that I was say accessing was so powerful and so grand. It's like a black hole. It just like sucked me up, and I was in is like bliss state. And in those realms, you just see the beauty, the potential. It's like, this is who you're supposed to be. This is what you're supposed to represent in physical form. And I go, oh, wow. Okay, that's fantastic. So that was the first near death experience. And then it's like, well, it's like, like a lot near deaths, something or someone says, well, you can stay here or you can go back. And as soon as you say you can go back, you're back in your body. And that's where I felt, the pain and everything. But that lingered, Cynthia, for so long. The joy and the bliss, despite the pain, despite all those things, it's like I saw an altered reality that we literally
Hmm.
could access in this realm. It took me the second near death to really integrate the concepts, the science behind it, the methods on how to, get younger so I don't have to age like my parents do, or see relationships very differently, even making money very differently. you know. So you don't end up, say, on the Epstein list. Because look at those people.
Right.
I mean, think of it. I mean, they had the intelligence, the looks, the success, all that. But then why did they end up on the Epstein list? There was
Yeah.
something that they did wrong, obviously, right?
Mhm.
Um, and the key is that, most people are doing the exact same thing as those people on the Epstein list, but they're just farther behind. That's all. They're all ending it towards the same path. And I'm not saying everybody's going to do those heinous crimes, but I'm just saying they're using, say, the same tools, same mechanisms, same concepts. So you don't want to end up in that reality. And that's what a lot of people, we were talking beforehand. That's what a lot of people are experiencing now. It's like, gosh, what is money about? Why am I, sacrificing myself to make this money? And because it doesn't really make me happy. My
Mhm.
relationships aren't, say, a complete why. The person is really nice, they're kind and so on, but why do I feel empty inside? So what is that key
Yeah.
component? And that's that second near death, which was a drowning accident, by the way. And you can look at, I mean, you can listen to the stories of the near death on my website, thexicode.com. Uh, but that second near death literally gave me the science and the mechanics on shifting people radically fast. A lot of times, maybe a few 15-minute sessions versus decades worth of therapy. Um,
Well, it's so interesting that we're talking about this. As I was thinking about, I spent a lot of my career working with famous people and rich people too. You know, like billionaires. And
Me too.
the thing that I came to recognize is that most people don't have that level of success without having a bottomless pit of need. That is not to say that all celebrities and all actors and all musicians or all billionaires are heartless
Yeah.
people who are lost, but the thing that I saw was that when everything is external,
Mhm.
when your highs have to come from outside of you,
Right.
it will never stop, and you will just be on to the next one and the next one, and then your tolerance, it's no different than it's an addiction.
It
It
is.
really is the addiction to attention, and I talk a lot about how much I hate the attention economy because I think it's just bringing out. Maybe we need the worst of ourselves brought out so that the poison comes to the surface for healing. But
Yeah.
you'll see somebody who's addicted to shopping or addicted to attention
Mhm.
criticizing somebody who's addicted to drugs, but it's like, are you really any different? I mean, it is a bottomless pit of need, and at some point when it stops working for a lot of people. And, I was writing my I think it was my second book, and I was writing about a very well-known man who owned a lot of very well-known brands. And while I was writing that book about him, I just happened to look him up. He kept coming up to my mind, which is the reason I was writing about him in the first place. This is spirit working, and I look him up, and he had just recently killed himself in his fancy office, and he had a $40 million Hamptons estate, a family, kids, grandkids, the respect of the world. And
Right.
it goes back to, until people learn how to manage their internal experiences, and get the experience of the wonder of the magic that we are capable of. And
Right.
that's my own experience, and this is something I'm still going through because we're always on the journey until you really touch that magic. And I've had those experiences where I've actually seen myself while I'm looking at myself in a situation, and I could feel the ecstasy of that elevation while simultaneously seeing, oh, I'm in trouble. And learning that your circumstances are going to always be changing, and how you actually command your internal experience really is, this, it creates your reality. And so much of our world has been built on the opposite, and I think that's a huge reason why the mental health crisis is off the charts.
Oh, absolutely. And it's not just for rich people anymore.
Yeah.
It's at all levels. Even people who are, economically struggling, they're in that same space, if I get those Nike shoes, then I'm going to be valued, or
Mhm.
If I buy this, then I'm gonna look famous or I'm gonna look good and so on like that. So for us, we get all levels of people, high level, net worth people, and then also high level, say spiritual people as well. Kind of like, very famous people, spiritual leaders that literally start coming to us because it's like, hey, Ma, something's not working. Again, Deepak Chopra, for example, very, very spiritual. So both ends are missing, say, the key component. And that's what we provide, that essence of who we are. And, you said something interesting, and it's not like you shouldn't have wealth, and it's not like you shouldn't connect to those, spiritual paradigms, but it's like, what fuel are you using, in my gosh, 14, 15 years of doing a lot of research, doing a lot of transformations, actual physical transformations that shift people. It's not what it is, it's not what they're doing, but who they are when they're doing it. Basically, what that is how much of your life force are you, say, using to create wealth or create spiritual knowledge or religious connections and so on like that. Are you giving of your life force away for something, say, fiat,
Mhm.
for success, for fame, for likes, for, God, for, helping others and so on like that. So if you're giving away your essence of who you are, that's really the key. In those situations, we don't change what people do. We basically change how to do it properly, where you're not you're not sacrificing who you are for X, whether it's money, whether it's fortune, whether it's fame, whether it's for your children and so on. I mean, how many times, Cynthia, have you heard it's like, hey, I sacrificed everything for you. I sacrificed everything for my kids. For it's like, well, don't do that because it's not
You're
it
not much good to your kids if you're sacrificing everything.
exactly. It's not much good to your kids, your loved ones, the people that follow you, the economy, the earth. Don't do that.
Mhm.
It's just wrong. You'll end up on the Epstein list, like I said.
Right. Yeah, it's so many. I've met quite a few people on that list, and there was a consistent, and it's. I'm an energy reader, and I had noticed that there was something off about Deepak for a while. And I'm sorry if I'm criticizing it sounds judgy, but it's a show to
Ah,
talk about situations, and the truth is people are good at reading energy, and I'm rarely actually wrong. And gosh, I wish I could go back and change some of those moments where I didn't listen to myself.
yeah,
But uh it really brings me to this place of the education system that we have. And one of my big issues with, and we know if you've been around the spiritual world for long, you find out that Rockefeller built here in America, particularly built the education system to produce mindless worker bees. He didn't want them writing poetry or
yeah,
music, or basically let's divorce you from all the things that actually make you enjoy life and make you in touch with
exactly.
with spirit and
Yeah,
turn you into a drone. Here in America, we spend all this time educating children on absolute trash, garbage, junk that is
sure.
half the time not even true, and the other half of the time rarely will be used. I'm not saying I didn't learn some things in school that became useful later, but it's such a waste of time of just stuffing people with a bunch of nonsense information that's not actually going to do them any good as an adult. And I think we'd be much better to teach our children from the youngest age how to select their thought, how to be the observer of their thoughts and select their thought habits, and
True.
simultaneously teaching them how to meditate and do yoga, which I think some people think is about telling them to be a particular kind of spirituality. And I'm like, no, I'm just telling them to
No.
understand their bodies.
Yeah,
But
exactly.
I think that would be a much better education platform to start them on. And they would learn a lot better if they actually had a better grasp of their inside.
It is, and we get a lot of young people nowadays, especially the parents have seen so much changes. They bring their kids to us, and
Mhm.
especially even the ones who have ADD, ADHD, and all those, they put them on drugs, and it's like, Moss, I don't want to put my kids on drugs. There's something else going on. We help those types of individuals as well, and the key component that you said there, the key word is being an observer you know, in Buddhism, in a lot of states, even in success mechanisms, they teach you to be an observer of yourself. We go much,
Mhm.
much deeper than that. We don't say observe yourself. Uh, well, most people observe their environment, so they compare themselves to their environment or to other people. We tell people to, and your listeners can do this right now. Just start observing on why you want the things that you do, why you think you need to have X, why you think you need to do that, why you think you need to be this way, and you'll start to see that all those things aren't you in the first place.
Mhm.
They're usually
Yeah.
your dad, your generational patterns, genetic patterns, societal patterns, your lifetime patterns. So it's not even you. And this is where people say miss the boat. It's like they might make a hell of a lot of money, but then they're left empty. They might fall in love with that person, and then they feel empty. Because again, if it's not you living your life, well, you're going to feel empty. And who is it that's living your life? So
Yeah.
that's what I
Yeah.
think a lot of people are asking is like, hey, this isn't my life. It's the government's, it's this. It's like, well, you have to go deeper and take responsibility and start to
Mhm.
be an observer on how you became you. And then you start peeling all that stuff away. And that's where life
Yeah.
becomes really, really enjoyable for you.
It's interesting when I hear people. It's interesting now. It's so funny when you wake up and you start to actually see things. And so, like, people will talk about, the divorce rate. And it's like, well, it would be helpful if we taught people to actually love themselves before they got into a romantic relationship, which is usually two people coming together based on their issues. And that instant attraction that's portrayed in media that's supposed to be so extra special is actually usually your biggest red flags finding a
Totally.
home.
You're so right. Yeah, there's so many people that I see because I scan frequencies as well, a little bit different than most, um, but when people talk about their relationships, it's like, well, you really didn't get together because you loved each other.
Hmm.
Saying you got together because they fit the pattern that you lacked. So it's kind of like two pieces, two
Yeah.
puzzle pieces coming together. And it's like, well, it's not going to work out. Uh,
Yeah.
that's,
Yeah. Yeah, it's not. So one of the things you and I touched on before we started recording, is the drastic amount of change that the world is undergoing right now. So we've entered the age of AI and the age of Aquarius simultaneously.
yeah,
Massive, more change happening in recent years, but in coming years than we've ever seen in the history of humanity.
yeah,
And we have a lot of lost people. That's the reason why we have a mental health crisis, and our systems are simply built to actually make the mental health crisis worse. And
right.
it's like, how do you provide hope to people when a lot of people are scared? Look, I get it. I have moments where I get pissed off, because I'm like, and this is when when you fall off, you're like, oh, I got triggered. Oh goodness, I got to go do my processes that keep me in the best possible flow state. But there are a lot of people who are stuck in those loops and they're scared right now because of all the drastic change. Is there anything that you can touch on that will give people hope?
Oh, yeah,
Work is
absolutely.
a great tool.
Yeah. One, when talking about triggers, if something triggers you, then that's where you're, inadequate in, and people try to hold on to that. So that's really number, say, one. And by the way, when I say you're inadequate, I talk more architecture, not like you're not good enough, you're never
Hmm.
gonna kid or anything like that. Basically, I see things from, so, say, a science perspective. And so when I say inadequate is like basically your foundation of who you are, your identity of who you are will not support the mission or the vision or the dream that you have. So when you get triggered, you're holding on to, say, an inadequate foundation
Hmm.
and that'll crush you. So if you do become successful, that success will crush you, just like the gentleman that you talked about. He committed suicide. Why? He was inadequate. His foundation was inadequate to hold on to that level of wealth. Okay. Or spirituality or kindness or whatever it is. It doesn't matter. It's just that your foundation has to be strong. So in order to do that, so notice, say, what triggers you, literally what bothers you, what you want to post on social media that say gets you riled up. It's like, I'm gonna go tell that person. So second notice is like, well, wait a second, why is some stranger affecting my emotions? Why am I that unstable? So that's the biggest key in today's society. Um, the second thing that people can do is start to observe how, say, systems uh, create you. Your idea of, well, it's just the way it is. Look at all the things that you just assume the way it is. And it's really not. The way you age, for example, start questioning that. The way the way you go to school, the way you go to college, the way you go to anything that you do out there is let's start questions like is this reality real or not? And not because it's not real, because it is, because you're living it, but it allows you to stay step away and become an observer of who you are and the system. And then you go, gosh, there's a better choice. And this
Hmm.
is where you start to like take ownership of who you are. Just by observing, you really can do a lot. Even little things like, where did I learn how to brush my hair in the morning? It's probably your mom or dad's, whoever, brushed your hair. It's that simple. So something or someone like literally overwrote your original program. It didn't allow you to be you. It forced you to be somebody else. That's where the problem happens.
Yeah, 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 I
Yeah.
like that. Being the observer and learning to be, for those of you who are listening, who are working on yourselves, learning to be the observer and observing your thoughts, the quality of your thoughts, and
Yeah.
taking command of choosing what those thoughts should be. And it's okay. Also, not judging yourself, not getting into the guilt and shame and the fear-based energies and emotional states that are taught to us by almost every system that we have in place, and learning that that's actually the highest form of intelligence is
Good.
being that. So if you really want to evolve to your highest version, that's really going to be key.
Mhm.
Your triggers, I just actually wrote a Substack about this last week, actually last week, it was yesterday. It goes by fast. On your triggers are an invitation,
Yeah.
and learning to, because as I'm a recovering perfectionist, so I saw it as like I was like in a contest, and I remember getting the chart Hawkins scale of WAP of consciousness, and I was like, oh,
Yeah.
I'm sure I'm at least halfway up this scale, only to find I was at the very bottom where guilt and shame are, and using that as a tool. Like I started to recognize that my triggers were signs, but I thought I was in some kind of contest where I would get them all fixed in 6 months.
Yeah. Oh, well.
That's that form of perfectionism. I had to have my ego broken down a little bit, and I'm not one that likes to say, "Oh, you have to have your ego ripped apart." It's like, can we not be? Can we set aside the dramatics? You need to recognize where your ego is actually showing up, and that using those triggers as opportunities. I mean, you're going to end up being able to address some of the your own cycles, but also the ones you inherited from the family situation and society.
Exactly. And there's tens of thousands of people that we've helped, where again, they don't have to age the way their parents did or society. Again, that's you're just expected, by 45, this happens to you. You hear it all over the news. You hear it in stories. You hear it in your family. You're looking, it's like, oh, at 45, you start losing your whatever your faculties or whatever it might be, right? And then people expect that it's not ask questions of how that works for you, right? Uh,
Hmm.
or why it works the way it does, and you can literally move away from that and start to create or render your own life.
Yeah, something I found interesting about aging. So I'm in my mid 50s now. I look younger now than I did 10 years ago because I was so miserable. And I started to realize something. The people that are aging quickly are just deeply unhappy. I mean, we're not talking about like every fine line or wrinkle, but just overall energetically, that like collapsing, which you see with a lot of people as they, age. And like now these kids are like, oh, I don't want to be 40s old. And it's like, no, it's not.
Yeah,
And it's when you stop evolving, you start dying.
yeah, yeah. When
Would
you're when
would you
you're
agree with that? I mean, that's a sort of a
uh,
generalized statement.
Yeah. Again, we go into the science on, why that happens. Obviously, people go, well, it's too much stress, it's too much this, it's too much that, it's the way we eat and all that. Sure, those are the outside factors or, the, say, symptom factors, but we go into the original cause or core level. And there's so many reasons on why people age. You know, a lot of times people say, for example, that you took care of your parents. You're a young person, your parents, just basically dominated your space, and then you morphed into your parents at like 15. Literally because, your parents were so dominant, they were so overriding, they were so controlling that by 15, you didn't know who you were. So you adapted to your parents, say, and this is just one example. Basically adapted to your parents' identity at 15 years old. So at 15, you're probably like a 45-year-old person thinking that, and then your gene pool, your genetics will literally like adopt. Although you're 25, you're going to age like you're 35, you're 45, you know. So that's one version of aging differently. I myself am like 65. Yeah, 65. And I look just like you, I've aged very, very differently than my parents. I had
Hmm.
diseases. So it's a testament to what we do. Mostly it's time. It's time. I work a lot with space time.
Hmm.
I know that sounds out there, but
No, no, there's not much you can say on this show that's out there.
okay.
We cover it all.
But editing timeframes basically is how you actually start to say age properly. And then what you do at the surface level, then it works a lot better. Whether it's I don't know, spas or peptide stacks or whatever, you get better results that way. You a lot of times, people do all that stuff, they might look better, but they feel old. That makes sense too.
Mhm.
They're healthy, they look great, but they still look there. They still have that resonance of their age. They just look better. They just age looking better, but they're still aging. What I'm talking about is like, wait a second, why do you have to age in that platform? You don't,
Mhm.
you can age very, very differently. You can age younger, basically. And we've seen that.
Yeah, I think that's a big difference between people aging, people treating the external
Mhm. Yeah,
that is so connected to in our training to aging versus I think I look more youthful now because I've allowed myself to reconnect with my inner child and become the version of me that got torn down by all the rules and all the teaching, the unhealthy teaching that is so predominant in our society. I skip now. I sing whenever I want to. I goof around. I do silly art. Like I'm more like the 8-year-old version of me, 5-year-old version of me now than I was for decades. And I
yeah,
and I think that is it's like the joie de vivre, the joy of living, living in ecstasy. And my most ecstatic moments are when I stop. I don't I'm not I'm just being,
right. Yeah,
without all the rules.
yeah, and yeah, for people, and again, you might think like for you specifically, if you don't mind, is like,
Yeah.
you did this, the physical thing, but I think at a deeper level, something happened where, say, your timing clicked in, and that's where you're starting to like heal yourself and rewrite, how you lived back in the day from what I'm sensing. Uh,
Hmm.
something clicked in you and it's like, oh, this is how we should live, you know. So that's true healing. Most people heal, they just put like more band-aids, more numbing cream or whatever on the pain. But
Yeah.
true healing, like you, for example, is like, wait a second, let me actually remove what's causing the wound here that still
Mhm.
exists. So, which is beautiful. You've done a great job, by the way.
Thank you. Yeah, it was a lot. It's a lot more work than us. So I think back to what I was saying earlier about, and I think so many people, a lot of my listeners are on the spiritual journey or recently had a spiritual awakening, And because we're trained to treat everything like a competition, it's like, oh, this is going to be great. It's going to be 6 months. It took me like 2 years to be like, oh, it never stops.
Yeah.
So I have to let go of this being some kind of self competition and just allow
Yeah.
the acceptance that it is cyclical, and I will have periods where I'll be learning more.
Of course.
So I have to take it back to the very beginning, before we close out this episode, which I could sit here and talk to you forever.
Yeah.
Near death experiences are really interesting. I wrote in my second book. I wrote a lot about. I'd had quite a few. I fell off of a third floor, and my neighbor just happened to see that I was hanging from the side of the building and about to lose my grip, and I landed right on top of him. Like he literally saved me from breaking my head open.
Wow.
I was on a Ferris wheel, and it was one of those circular ones, and the harness, the only thing I was wearing that held me in, which was a U-shaped harness, opened up completely, and
Wow.
the gentleman beside me just happened to be able to grab. He just did like that and held on to my belt. I was wearing a belt,
Yeah.
and he held on to me, but I remember like exiting my body in that moment because I was like, "Oh my God." And watching myself laying on the ground, it was wild. Um, what is it about NDEs that it's become such a part of your teachings? What is it? Dig in, share with me.
Well, NDEs, just like anything, if you use it properly, you can, like for me or many other, like Anita Murjani, a very famous author. She had cancer and she cured herself of cancer, literally, in a very short period of time. Other people get great gifts of music, talent, speaking different languages, all those things. So again, those people probably did NDEs better than most, uh, I had the NDEs to say accelerate the knowledge, like you go out, grab knowledge and bring it here and apply it in this reality. So NDEs literally allow you to fast track if you do it properly. And I'm not suggesting you go out and try to, have a near death or anything like that. But if you're awakened and you're ready to accelerate to the next level, like for me, I've used my NDEs just to go, okay, let's take another, lifetime course or, tens of lifetime courses and compress it down into one moment. So it allows us to like separate from this reality, go to the reality that we are, say, have limitless potential, bring knowledge back and, bring it back here and like apply it. That's what NDEs are supposed to do. Most NDEs, if you don't mind me telling why you have, what did it, seven, seven NDEs you've had in your lifetime? Yeah. From what I'm seeing. Yeah. Yeah. One, two,
I'm really impressed right now.
seven NDEs. Yeah. It's literally the physical world wasn't satisfactory for you when you're a kid because you're very bright, almost say angelic type, and there's a reason for that we can talk uh, offline. But you're there, and you go, This is like this is what they showed me in the brochure, but this is what I got." You know how they show you a beautiful like hotel, beautiful and then you go there and it's like, shit, this is not the same. What the hell happened? So that's you when you came into physical form right off the bat. For some reason, it's like, this is not what they showed me in the brochure, and then you're going, I want to go back. I want my money back. So, those seven NDEs are really like, hey, but the deal is that, you can't you can't correct, say, that pattern. So basically you just wanted your money back. You wanted to go back. And that's why you've had so many. It's like, this is the wrong reality. I must be in the wrong reality, basically, because it's not supposed to be this way.
Well,
And
I
then,
remember the conversation before I came back this lifetime. I've remembered it my entire life, even when I was in my crib.
yeah,
I had the eyes and thoughts of an adult, and they said to me that it was going to be really difficult and that I really want to do this. And it's like, oh, yeah, sure. And then I got here and I was like, I'm sorry.
yeah, exactly.
This is a little more than I know I signed up for this, but this is way more than I was expecting. I'm sure that was
That,
like, you asked for this.
that's my point is, wait, like, let me go choose something else. And it's like, well, you already chose this, and you can't,
Hmm.
you know. So in that case, I'm sure there's always a reason why, but over time, maybe, gosh, in your early mid 40s, something happened to you where it's like you started to get the rhythm. It's like, oh, that's why I'm here. And that's where things started working out better for you. You basically stayed in time. You started to realize that this reality is, you started to understand and you started to put your, say, consciousness in this reality, in the same reality as your body. And that's where your body started to feel comfortable for you in your literally mid to mid 40s. Where it's like, oh, this is the way life is. And then you saw the beauty of what could be here. And that's what you're manifesting now, which is really beautiful, Cynthia. So
Yeah,
I don't know if that
it's
made
been a
sense.
great few years. I mean, it's been it was there's moments where I was like, I really got to work on that. I really don't want to work on that. Like, I don't want to face every single, that's part of the deal. But the joy, in not laying in bed worrying about things that most of the time I didn't have much control over anyway, and I knew that intellectually, but I still would lay there doing all that. Anyway, goodness gracious, I could just keep talking and talking to you. If our audience wants to read more about your work and your philosophy and all that stuff, where would they
Yeah.
go?
They could go to the XI code, the THEXI exponential intelligence code.com. And they can also go to my name, MASATI dot live on YouTube. And there's so much free stuff on there, by the way. And if you go to the XI code, you sign up for our newsletter, you get a few meditations that'll really help you
I'm
understand.
so sorry. I'm gonna have to pause it for a second. The dog is going crazy and it's gonna get picked up by the
Oh,
audio. I'm so sorry. Well, I'll edit this part out. Give me just a second. Pickles, stop.
it's a cute.
Ah! I knew I shouldn't have shut that door. Would you please stop yelling? Oh my goodness, the drama. Sorry about that. Let's just.
There we go.
No, gosh, it was funny. I was like, I could see where shit was going on over my screen, and I'm like, no, no, I almost made it. So I'll just ask the same question again
Yeah,
for the audience.
which is good. But anyway,
All right. So, Masati, if our audience wants to learn more about your work and any events you might have coming up and all that good stuff, where would they go?
yeah, they can go to the xicode.com, THEXI exponential intelligence code.com. And they can also go to my YouTube channel. It's MASATI, Masati.live. And there's so much free stuff there, by the way. And if you want to sign up for the newsletter, you can actually get a few meditations to start you off. Because what I do is very, very different, very, very powerful. Those are the best three channels, actually. There's a lot of content on me out there on YouTube. So just look me up.
Yeah, sounds good. Well, thank you so much for coming on the show. It's been
Okay.
such a pleasure. I have a feeling you and I are going to be running into each other
Okay. Yeah,
again. Yeah,
of course.
yeah.
Absolutely.
Well, thank you so much, you guys, for listening to another episode of Soul Tech with Cynthia. If you are not familiar with my work or my books, go to cynthialelliott.com. You can learn about all three of my books. I've got a fourth book coming out in October, Soul Tech, 12 Codes for Awakening Your Highest Self, The Art and Science of Higher Consciousness. I'm super excited about this book, already a bestseller and new releases. You can also learn about the events that I'm doing. I've got the Her Health Summit .com, Her Health Summit coming up in October in Boca Raton, Florida. Amazing speakers. It's going to be crazy. You have to go get your tickets now. And of course, you can learn about my foundation, the soultechfoundation.org, where we do work to help underserved communities thrive in the age of AI. Thanks again for listening. If you're not subscribed, what are you thinking? Intelligent listening? Come on. Anyway, you guys have a beautiful day, and I'll be back again with another episode. Thanks, Masati. Have a beautiful day.
Thank you, hon. Take care.
Bye.